This is a tutorial on how to use the Sony Studio cameras. First we need to look at what the camera is mounted on. This is called a pedestal. The round silver handle is basically the steering wheel. It controls the direction of the wheels on the bottom of the pedestal. The black tape on the handle indicates the direction of the wheels. Before we pull the camera out to use it, let's take a look at the cabling behind it. You'll notice this is in a figure 8, which is the way we will return the cables when we are done. The cable is connected to the camera with a multi-pin cord. When we are moving the camera, we don't want to put much stress on these pins. They are very small and fragile. So when you are pulling the camera out, place one hand on the steering wheel and the other on the cable. This will take the stress off the connector. Make sure as you are pulling the camera out that you don't run over any other cables or someone's foot. Now that you have the camera out on the floor, let's look at some of the controls. First, you'll notice that it has a big front to it. This is the prompter head. It is a one-way mirror that allows the anchors to read words projected right in front of the camera lens, but the lens sees through it. Next, you'll notice a little silver knob on the right side of the pedestal. This is a tilt lock. When we store the camera, we want this to stay on, but when they are used, this needs to be off in order to tilt the camera head up and down freely. You unlock it simply by pulling out. Sometimes you need to turn the knob a little and adjust the camera up or down slightly. Remember, this is only for storing the camera. We leave this tilt lock off during our production because there is a second tilt lock we use during the production. So let's look at the other tilt and pan controls on the pedestal. They are located in the back of the camera. Most are labeled, but there is one that is not, and that is the second tilt lock. It is located inside the pedestal directly under the camera head. When the lever is in the lowered position, the camera tilt lock is off. When it is in the upper position, the camera tilt lock is on. The tilt drag is the metal knob, which is a bit painful to adjust. The other controls are the pan lock and the pan drag. When adjusting your shot, you want the locks off. Once it is set, then lock it. Of course, we also have rear controls on our camera for zoom and focus. We will talk a little more about them when we begin to set our shot. We also have a monitor for a viewfinder, and if you don't see any video on it, it means one of three things. The power is not on, the prompter skirt is in the way of the lens, or the contrast and brightness is turned down. So first, let's power the camera on. When the camera is in studio mode, there are two power sources. One is on the actual camera, and the other is in control room on the CCU, also known as the camera control unit. They both need to be on in order for the camera to have power. Next, make sure your viewfinder is set correctly by generating some bars so we can set the plugage. Bars can be generated on the CCU unit. We make sure the viewfinder video is a good representation of what our camera sees by properly adjusting the 3 bars in the bottom right of the camera's viewfinder. Basically, we're adjusting this so one completely fades into the background while the other 2 are barely visible. This viewfinder can also tilt down or up depending on how high the camera is and how short the camera operator is. You can adjust this by loosening the controls on the right side and then gently pulling it forward or back. Now let's make sure our iris, gain, and filter are all set correctly. Our iris should be on auto. Remember that the iris control is towards the front of the camera near the zoom control. A puts it in auto. Gain is actually located on the opposite side of the camera, down near the power button. This should be in 0 dB. Finally, let's look at the filter ring. Remember our light temperatures. In the studio, we're shooting an incandescent light, which is 3200 degrees Kelvin. So check the light temperatures printed on the side of the camera, find the corresponding filter number, and adjust the ring to that number. Now we're ready to white balance. With studio cameras, we can white balance either on the actual camera unit or in the control room using the CCU. Let's make sure our white balance is on either A or B, not preset. Preset will just use a preset white value for lighting that may be different than what we are using. So in order to ensure our colors look good, we're going to white balance to the light we have in the studio. We're going to white balance on the camera unit. So first zoom in on a white piece of paper so white fills the entire screen. Next press the silver toggle switch in the center front of the camera up. In the viewfinder we see it flash and then tell us the white balance is okay. These cameras also have a black balance, so we are going to go ahead and do that too by depressing that same toggle switch down. Our camera is now properly white balanced. We are ready to set our shot. First, make sure that the lens is at proper level for our subject. Next, make sure the camera and subject are in place in critical focus. Zoom all the way in on the subject's eyes. Roll the focus until it's clear and zoom out to frame the shot for a medium close-up. Always follow the rule of thirds. Hooray! You now know how to operate a studio camera. To put it away, we just do everything in reverse order. Power the camera off, lock the tilt knob at the side of the pedestal, pull the camera back to its home position, and figure 8 the cables.